Now I will get into second order. Okay, so it is chapter 13, linear differential equation in Grable. Okay, linear, not linear first order differential equation, that is one part. Okay, linear differential equation. Actually that is called as linear equations, am I right? Linear first order equation is called as linear equation. Let's see, this is linear differential equation. So it is of the form, yeah, how do you write? Speak out. Y by dx raised to n plus some p1 into d raised to n minus 1 y by dx raised to n minus 1 plus and so on, plus pn into y is equal to some function of x, where p1, p2 and so on up to pn are pn and x, and that x are functions of x only, functions of x only. So this kind of differential equation is called as linear differential equation of nth order. You can see that one, am I right? N is the maximum derivative here, so all other are lower derivative. Is that okay? Now, so next one here again, so we need to do little bit about this one, okay? Because usually in case of Schrodinger equation in 3 dimension, you will end up with this kind of variable coefficient, okay? So shall I say this is variable coefficient, or again constant is also a function of x only, okay? I mean this is the most general definition. Now let me take like this linear differential equation with constant coefficient. I mean if those coefficients are constant, that also called as linear differential equation, then let me write like this: d raised to n y by dx power n plus k1 into d raised to n minus 1 y by dx power n minus 1 plus and so on, plus kn into y is equal to some x, where k1, k2, k3, where k1, k2 and so on up to kn are constants. Now let me first solve this part, okay? I mean again let me handle this x part later. Let me solve this type of differential equation, d power n by dx power n plus k1 into d power n minus 1 y by dx power n minus 1 plus and so on, plus kn into y is equal to 0, okay? Let me take this kind of differential equation. Later we shall handle what to do for the differential equation where this is some function of x, okay? I mean again he will handle those two together here, okay? In the derivation and all, he will handle both of them together. So actually if you solve this one, the solution is called as complementary function. Is that okay? If you solve that one, solution is called as complementary function. Then you have to find particular integral by just taking some inverse operator or something, okay? Let me just explain that a particular integral later. That particular integral, it will exist only if this is non-zero. So if this is 0, so your solution itself is complementary function actually. Solution itself is complementary function. Let me take that part later because it will not come very frequent in our quantum mechanics. So let me handle that kind of situation later. So now look at here. To solve this one again, to find this complementary function, what you have to do here is, you have to define operator first, okay, d cap, that's equal to d by dx. So that d cap square, that's equal to d square by dx square, second derivative operator, like that, okay. So now next step is, so writing this whole thing in terms of like d cap raised to n y plus k1 d cap raised to n minus 1 y plus and so on up to k n y is equal to 0. Am I right? Now you can just take this one outside, d cap raised to n plus k1 into d cap raised to n minus 1. So plus and so on plus kn operating on y equal to 0. You can write like this. Is that okay? Now we call this one as some function of operator, isn't it? Function of d. So shall I call like this? F of d cap of y equal to 0. By just grab that y outside, or just take this one as operator which is operating on this one, you will get this step, okay. We call that one as function of d cap, f of d cap. Is that okay? Wait a second. Now what you have to do here is, you have to find the root of this one. You have to find the roots of this equation, d power n plus k1 d power n minus 1 plus k2 d power n minus 2 plus and so on up to kn is equal to 0, by treating d as one variable. Is that okay? Now this is nothing but one polynomial in d, am I right? Now we call this one as auxiliary equation. Now up to this one I was treating d as a operator. Now when I write this one, we call this one as auxiliary equation. I will treat d as one variable in the polynomial, and I am going to find the root of this equation. Is that okay? So when I find the root of that equation, and different situation may happen, am I right? You have to find the root of the equation, different situation may happen, am I right? So in case 1, if roots are real and distinct, okay, let me take first case, because maybe different polynomial may happen, am I right? Are you getting my point? So this is nth order polynomial, it will have n roots, need not be distinct. Is that okay? It will have n roots. Now if the roots are, we call this as auxiliary equation, okay. If the roots of auxiliary equation are real and distinct, I'll call those roots as m1, m2 and so on up to mn, okay, because we will have n roots here. Nth order polynomial, isn't it? You will have n roots when you equate that one to 0. Are you getting the idea? Up to this one you have to treat that one as operator or something, but when you come here, treat that one as a polynomial in d, and then find the root of that one. Suppose these are root, then your complementary function, actually whatever I am writing, that is called as complementary function. Later I will take that idea. Now itself is a solution, complementary function itself is a solution. That will be e power m1x c1 e power m1x plus c2 e power m2x plus c3 e power m3x and so on. If roots are real and distinct. Remember, if roots are imaginary and distinct also, you can do the same thing. You can just write the same imaginary values here. You can write the same thing. But we can convert that one into sine and cosine. That's why we treat that one as separately. Are you getting my point? Yeah, let me take that. Case 2. If the roots are wait a second, if two roots are equal, rest of them are real and distinct. If two roots are I mean, you will get a logic, okay, once I do couple of steps. If two roots are equal, let me write like this. That means rest of them are distinct. Distinct. For that repeated root, can I write m is equal to m1 is equal to m2? m1 is equal to m2. I call that one as m. And other roots are m3, m4, and so on. Is that okay? In that situation, your solution or complementary function itself is a solution that's equal to c1 plus c2x. Corresponding to this repeated root, coefficient will be like this, e power mx. Either this m equal to m1 is equal to m2 plus c3 into e power m3x plus and so on. For other non-repeated roots, again it will continue as here. Is that okay? It will continue as here. Corresponding to that repeated root, you will have this part. Again, why it should be exponential, why it's other kind of function, I think he might have given proof, okay. Solution of differential equation is a function which satisfies differential equation. If you are worried about how this becomes solution, so go back and substitute that one. Is that okay? Substitute that one, that will be verified. I mean, you can verify that one, okay. Are you getting my point? I am not discussing the proofs of this one, isn't it? I think he might have given that one using integrating factor and all. That integrating factor will be some e power some kx like that, mx, isn't it? Just similar to that one. So just treat this one as p of x, e power p of x into dx. That's how you do. You have to multiply with that integrating factor, and then you have to solve that equation. Okay, just see the proof of that one. I am just discussing the method here. Now case 3. Again, let me just continue. If m is equal to m1 is equal to m2 is equal to m3, if 3 roots are repeated, if I have 3 repeated roots, m4, m5 and all different, is that okay? Then how do you write? c1 plus c2x plus c3x square into e power mx corresponding to repeated root. Is that okay? So plus c4 into e power m4x plus and so on. I hope you got the idea how to proceed generally. Okay. They call that one as Leibniz linear equation, and then integrating factor like this. Somehow they derived that one. I think that is connected to some earlier question, earlier part. Okay, but you should know only the method. Okay, so leaving the proof for mathematicians. Don't be worried about that one. Again, if you need, then only go for that pure mathematics. Okay, now look at here. I need only properties here. Now, suppose if they are complex also, you can proceed with the same thing, but this will be complex. But in that case, we can manipulate that one to trigonometric function. So in this case also, suppose if you found c1 equal to c2 or something, m1 equal to, sometimes you may write in terms of hyperbolic function, if they are real. Okay. So most of the case your answer will so they may give in hyperbolic function, not like this. Okay. So if pairs of roots are complex conjugate to each other, Definitely. I mean this, wait a second, don't try. If there are only two complex roots, they should be complex conjugate to each other. Am I right? There is one theorem. If one complex number is a root of that equation, then its complex conjugate is also root of the same equation. Is that okay? If a complex number comes as a root and its complex conjugate is also a root. Is that okay? Now let me take the situation like this. Wait a second. If one pair root be imaginary, yeah, I better to write like this. If one pair of roots be imaginary, are you getting my point? That means those pairs, those should be complex conjugate to each other, because if one complex number is a root, its complex conjugate is also a root. That is the idea. Okay. So now let me write m1 is equal to alpha plus I beta, m2 is equal to alpha minus I beta. These are the pair of roots. So m3 and all are real, and let me just, I am not concentrating on that part. m4 and all, okay, real and distinct. Then correspond to these two, how do you write? E power m1 into x only. Is that okay? So alpha plus I beta into x, c1 plus c2 e power alpha minus I beta into x plus c3 into e power m3x plus and so on. This I am not concentrating on this part, I am not elaborating. Maybe if these two are real and equal, again you have to follow this step to write corresponding that part. Is that okay? I am just concentrating on this part in this case. So now look at here, you can write e power alpha x common, e power alpha into x common, you can write c1 into e power I beta x plus c2 into e power minus I beta x plus and so on. You can use your Euler formula to write that one as e power alpha x multiplied with, speak out, c1 into cos beta x plus I sin beta x plus c2 into cos beta x minus I sin beta x. When you simplify this one, e power again plus and so on, okay, other part plus and so on, e power alpha x, I will take cos beta x common by writing c1 plus c2 cos beta x plus c1 minus I c2, check it out, check that out, am I right? Now this c1, okay, look at here, this c1, c2, c3, those should be fixed by initial condition or boundary condition. So that is why you can keep that one as some other constant, you can evaluate that one later. E power alpha x, I will call it as c1 dash, c1 plus c2 as c1 dash cos beta x plus c2 dash sin beta x plus and so on. I c1, okay, I comes out, am I right? I into c1 minus c2, yeah, that is correct. I call this together as c2 dash, this together as c1 dash. Some other constant, it will be evaluated using boundary condition later. You don't have to worry about that. Now corresponds to that pair of complex number, this is the root, sorry, this is the solution. Corresponds to these two roots. So this is the part of the solution and other part will be followed. Is that clear? Next case, what is that case? 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth one. If two pairs of imaginary root imaginary roots be equal. Are you getting my point? M1 is equal to M2 is equal to alpha plus I beta. M3 is equal to M4 is equal to alpha minus I beta. Remember, if this root appear twice, this root will also appear twice, definitely. Are you getting my point? Again, the same rule, same theorem. So then again, you can write the same thing. Okay, C1 into C1 plus C2 x into, yeah, how do you write? Yeah, for M1 and M2, e power alpha plus I beta into x plus C3 plus C4x into e power alpha plus I beta into x. That was very general actually. Whatever we have written initially, alpha minus I beta. Alpha minus I beta into x here. Again, you can manipulate this one by taking e power alpha x common and doing that one. You can write this one as some e power alpha x common. Am I right? E power alpha x common from these two. You can write C1x plus C2 or C1 dash x, C1 dash plus C2 dash x into cos beta x plus C3 dash plus C4 dash x into, you can just manipulate it actually. And plus and so on, okay, plus and so on corresponding to other roots. We have taken very general case. Over? Speak out. Just try to manipulate this one, okay, how you got this one. Now, very frequent situation is your roots are M1 will be equal to I beta, M2 will be equal to minus I beta. If I beta is the root, minus I beta is also root. Very frequent situation is this one. Is that okay? Second order differential equation, it will have only two roots because your auxiliary equation will be second order polynomial. Is that okay? So then your solution will be C1 into e power I beta plus C2 into e power minus I beta. Now you can manipulate this one, C1 dash into cos, wait a second, x here, cos beta x plus C2 dash into sin beta x. Is that okay? This is very frequent situation. If you have I beta minus I beta, then you can write like this, or you may have this situation, M1 is equal to some real quantity beta, M2 is equal to minus beta, like that. Okay, this is also very frequent situation. Then you can't convert that one into sin and cos because e power I theta will not come over there. Is that okay? That's also very frequent situation in case of Schrodinger equation. If pairs of roots are purely imaginary, can I say like that? Is that okay? If pairs of roots are purely imaginary, you can write like this. There is no e power alpha x term, alpha equal to 0 here. Okay? That common term, whatever I have written, that alpha equal to 0. Now let me start application. D square x by dt square. Now look at here, you should not be symbol sensitive here. Plus phi into dx by dt plus 6x is equal to 0. And he mentioned initial condition also, x of 0 is equal to 0 dx by dt at x equal to 0 is 15. You can find all constants also, whatever the constant appear over there. Clear? Now how do you write this one in terms of our symbol? Now d cap is equal to d by dt actually. X is our function of time, just like y was function of x over there. Change of variable. Is that okay? X is playing the role of y, t is playing the role of x over there. So d cap square plus 5 into d cap plus 6 operating on x is equal to 0. Now my auxiliary equation is d square plus 5d plus 6 which is equal to 0. Or do you write d square plus 3d plus 2d d into plus 2 into d plus 2 d plus 3 is equal to 0. Your solutions are, let me write d equal to solution, okay? D equal to minus 2 and minus 3, am I right? 2 root, they are distinct. What is your solution then? C1 into e power minus 2x plus C2 into e power minus 3x. Speak out. Again, why I have written y, x? X is function of t, isn't it? What is your solution? X is equal to C1 into e power minus 2t plus C2 into e power minus 3t. X is playing the role of y, t is playing the role of x. Be careful. Okay? Now what is, again you have to find C1, C2. Look at here. For second order differential equation, you need two boundary conditions to find your solution completely, to find all of your constants C1, C2. You will have two integration constants, look at here, in case of second order differential equation. In case of first order differential equation, go back and see, you will have only one integration constant. Is that okay? There was, only one initial condition was needed to solve first order differential equation. To solve second order differential equation completely, this is the solution. To find C1 and C2 and write the complete solution, you should have two initial conditions. You can find completely. Now look at here. X of 0 is equal to 0. What is this one? 0, C1 e power 0, C2 e power 0. You got one equation. Am I right? Now you have to take dx by dt because you have to write dx by dt at x equal to 0 equal to 15, isn't it? So find dx by dt. What is dx by dt? Minus 2 C1 e power minus 2t minus 3 C2 e power minus 3t. Just check it out. Dx by dt at t equal to 0 is equal to 0. Am I right? Sorry, is equal to 15. Sorry, 15 is equal to, put t equal to 0. Minus 2 C1 plus minus 3 C2. Am I right? You got two equation, two unknowns. Check that out. Yes, speak out. Dx by dt is t equal to 0. Yeah. T equal to 0. Dx by dt at t equal to 0, not x equal to 0. Again, so that's why you better to quickly solve this kind of problem, which is a change of variable, so that it will be practiced. Am I right? Because you will always think dy by dx, dy by dx. Again, I am also writing the same thing. Am I right? Yeah, try to, practice this change of variables. Dx by dt at t equal to 0 is equal to 50. Isn't it? Now what would you do? What are C1 and C2? C1 equal to 15. 15. C2 equal to minus 15. Isn't it? Now you found both of them. Now look at here. So since you have two constants, you should have two initial conditions so that you will get two equations to solve that one. Now your complete solution is x of t is equal to, I can take 15 common, so e power, yes, speak out, 15, yeah, e power minus 2t plus e power minus 3t. That's your complete solution. 15 into e power minus 2t minus e power minus 3t. No more integration constants, isn't it? That's a complete solution. Remember, for a given differential equation, if you change initial condition, you will get different solution. Maybe that functionality remains same, but integration constant C1 and C2 will change if you change the initial condition. Now, can you solve all of these problems here? Page number 474 in Grewal, and the problem set 13.1. This is the 13th chapter, okay? Problem set 13.1. If you feel any difficulty, I will solve it in the evening. Solve all of them, okay? Suppose let me solve one more here. D square x by dt square plus 6 dx by dt plus 9x equal to 0. X is a function of t. Is that okay? D square plus 6d plus 9 of x equal to 0, where d equal to d by dt, isn't it? Auxiliary equation is d square plus 6d plus 9 equal to 0. 3 3 the, am I right? D is equal to minus 3, repeated root, am I right? Repeated root. Now what is your solution? Oh, not y, x as a function of t, that's equal to c1 plus c2x into e power minus 3t. Don't write x and do. Speak up. Yeah, again t. C1 plus C2t. C1 plus C2t into e power minus 3t. Yeah, solve outside problem also, okay? Today itself. For a time sake, I will just close the differential equation. Is that okay? Method. But I have to handle that differential equation with variable coefficient, okay? We call that one as Frobenius method or power series method. So that's a quite different class of differential equation. So here again, we found the solution of linear differential equation with constant coefficient, okay? Not variable coefficient. In case of variable coefficient, method differs. Now, let me take one of the famous differential equation. Let me start with this one. For one-dimensional Hooke's law, suppose you have spring, you can write like this, F equal to minus kx. What is F? M into d square x by dt square, isn't it? Minus k into x. When you manipulate this one, d square x by dt square plus k by m into x is equal to 0. This is the differential equation for spring motion, isn't it? For spring, when you display it, this is the displacement from the mean position. When you displace mass from the mean position, force will be opposite to your displacement and it is proportional to displacement. You can do that one. You can do the experiment using some mass and spring. You can show that those are proportional. Force is proportional to displacement. Okay. Now look at here. This is the differential equation. Now while solving, we may get into trouble. That's why what we write here is d square x by dt square. Write this one as omega square into x equal to 0, where omega square is equal to k by m. Omega is equal to root of k by m. I'll not write plus or minus root. Look at here. I'll not write plus or minus root. Okay. Omega is equal to root of k by m. So this is the symbol that we created here. Now look at here. So when you solve this one, d square plus omega square x equal to 0. Am I right? Where d is equal to d by dt, isn't it? So now what is your auxiliary equation? D square plus omega square equal to 0. So d square is equal to minus omega square, where omega square is positive. This is purely negative quantity. That's why d is equal to plus or minus I omega. Or root of minus omega square. Plus or minus, or you can write d is equal to plus or minus root of minus omega square. Take omega outside, minus I, minus 1 I, like that. Okay. D is equal to plus or minus I omega, that is your root. Is it clear? If d was equal to plus or minus I omega, what was your solution? C1 into e power I omega t. Again, why this y came? X of t. Plus C2 into e power minus I omega t. Now you can write that one in terms of sine and cos also. Am I right? By defining some other variable. So a cos omega t. So plus b sin omega t. Now look at here, one of the very important property of this linear differential equation, what did I said? I said earlier, am I right? If this is also individually a solution, this is the most general solution, remember. This individually is also solution, you can substitute and you can check it out. This cos omega t, it individually a solution. Sin omega t, it individually a solution. So linear combination is also solution. So that's a property. Is that okay? That's the property of all linear differential equation. If you have two independent solution, so linear combination is also solution. Is that okay? Now look at here. Now how do you find that A and B? You need initial condition. To define initial condition, you have to define first system. Am I right? We haven't defined system at all. Suppose I have a spring where mass is attached here. Is that okay? This is x equal to 0. This is the mean position, rest position. So when I displace this one by x, by a displacement from the mean position is x, and if I leave that one, it will do simple harmonic motion. Am I right? Now it does matter where you left your what you call mass. Am I right? So that all different. Now look at here. So my initial position of the mass, let me take it at one extreme position. Is that okay? At t equal to 0, x of 0 is equal to some x naught. And I am leaving that one with 0 initial velocity. At t equal to 0, dx by dt is equal to 0. Because you need two initial conditions to solve that one completely. Isn't it? Are you getting my initial condition? I am starting my clock at one extreme position. That means at time t equal to 0, I am leaving the mass here and it will execute simple harmonic motion. When I leave that one at time t equal to 0 here means, so my displacement at time t equal to 0 is x naught. Let me take like that. Is that okay? And so I am leaving that one without giving any initial push. Is that okay? I am just leaving this one with initial velocity 0. Now if you substitute these two, you will find constant. What is this one? X of 0 is equal to x naught. X naught is equal to a into cos 0 plus b into sin 0. What is this one? Sin 0 is 0, a equal to x naught. Isn't it? So what is dx by dt? First find dx by dt, then put t equal to 0 and then take the second condition. What is dx by dt? A minus a omega sin omega t plus b omega cos omega t. Am I right? Plus b omega cos omega t. then so dx by dt at time t equal to 0 is 0. 0 is equal to minus a omega into sine 0. So plus b omega into cos 0. Cos 0 1, sine 0 0, b omega is equal to 0. That means b equal to 0. Omega cannot be 0. Omega equal to root of k by m. You got b, you got a. That means you know the complete solution, isn't it? What is the complete solution for this initial condition? X of t is equal to x naught into cos omega t. Now suppose if you start your clock at the mean position, not extreme position, mean position, where it has some maximum velocity. Can you just check it out for other boundary condition? Let me give other boundary condition. At time t equal to 0, x of 0 is equal to 0, it was at mean position. So, but at time t equal to 0, your dx by dt, it is some maximum value. In the mean position, it will have highest velocity in case of spring motion, isn't it? Is that okay? It has the highest velocity. Now also you can just try to find the solution for this boundary condition. In this case, it will be sine, because when you put t equal to 0, x should be 0. Am I right? Cos will not allow it to be 0. This cannot be the solution for this boundary condition. Try to do this one. And you can, once you know position as a function of t, you can find velocity, momentum, you can find kinetic energy. What is the potential energy here? What is the potential energy here? F is equal to minus k into x, am I right? F is equal to minus dou v by dou x. That means dou v by dou x is equal to k into x. So that's why v should be equal to half kx square, just integration of this one. Is that okay? Are you getting my point? So that is the potential energy. Kinetic energy is half mv square. When you add those two, you will get constant actually. Can you show that one? Show that how total energy is equal to constant. Constant. I mean, so again you have to take x of t, you have to substitute. You have to take velocity, you have to substitute. Velocity means derivative. And you can show that one. Now look at here, it is a periodic motion, am I right? Let me take this solution. X of t is equal to x naught into cos omega t, am I right? Now x of t plus t, after some time period, we call that one as time period. After some time it will repeat, am I right? So again you can write that one as x naught into cos of omega t plus t. X naught into cos omega t. Then omega t should be equal to 2 pi. Why? Cos of theta plus 2 pi is cos theta. Are you getting my point? So then t is equal to 2 pi by omega. Omega is equal to root of k by m, root of m by k. Your time period is given by this equation. And it depends on mass. Yeah, let me take some more physical examples like this. Is that okay? Try to do it yourself. Now, the main thing that you have to observe here, I don't know whether he mentioned or not. I think later, okay, he mentioned those things, we shall study them. somewhere he put that one as a theorem actually. Second order differential equation will have two linearly independent solutions. So that is the theorem. Somewhere I found that one. What do you mean by linearly independent? I said second order differential equation have got two linearly independent solutions. Am I right? What do you mean by linearly independent? Suppose you have one solution as sin x. Is that okay? You have other solution 2 sin x. Are they linearly independent? You can write y2 is equal to 2 times y1. They are dependent. Are you getting my point? So now if suppose y1 is equal to sin x, y2 is equal to cos x. Is there any possible way of writing y2 in terms of y1, not in terms of root? Okay, I am talking about linear relationship. You don't say cos can be written as root of 1 minus sin square x. That is not linear relationship. Now we can say these are linearly independent. Usually second order differential equation will have two linearly independent solution. These two are linearly independent. Is that okay? Sin and cos. Suppose if you take y1 is equal to e power x, y2 is equal to e power minus x. Is there any possible way of writing e power x in terms of e power minus x as a linear? No. One is reciprocal of other. Reciprocal is not linear relationship. Okay? We say they are linearly independent. Okay? I will talk about that one in the beginning of linear algebra. So now look at here, let me take this one, d square x by dt square plus omega square x is equal to 0. Let me call one of the solution as some e power I omega t. You can check it out again, x1. Is that okay? So what is dx1 again? So yeah. So what is x2? E power minus I omega t. You can just check it out. x1 of t dot, first derivative. What is this one? I omega e power I omega t. So x1 of t double dot, second derivative. Okay. What is this one? I omega the whole square e power I omega t, that is equal to minus omega square into x1 of t itself. Look at here, second derivative is equal to minus omega into the function itself. Second derivative is equal to plus omega square into function. If you take it here, you got this equation. Same thing will happen for this one. These two are independently solutions of the equation. Is that okay? Suppose if you write it like this, c1 x1 plus c2 x2. We call this one as most general solution. Linear combination of this kind of solution, we call that one as most general solution. So you can write c1 into e power I omega t plus c2 into e power minus I omega t. So this is also solution, you can just check it out. Take first derivative, what would happen? I omega will come out, minus I omega will come out. Take one more derivative, you will get minus omega square outside. And you will get the same equation. Can you check it out? This is also solution, and mathematically we have written this one directly. We haven't written this one, am I right? We have written this one as the most general solution. Is that okay? Just remember, because I need that one in case of Schrodinger equation.